My name's Daniel Smith. I'm senior producer on Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and I work at Xbox Game Studios. I'm a long-term partner with Moon. I worked with them for about 8 years and helped them ship Blind Forest and then Definitive Edition and now the sequel. So you've gotten some time to play the game. What do you think so far?
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed so far. Hey guys, just a quick roundup. We had a Ori and the Will of the Wisps preview event. We could already play around 1 or 2 hours of the game. And yeah, let's start with the questions.
Excellent. Yeah, let's go.
You already mentioned the first game. What would you say is the one specific thing that changed from the first to the second, like a gameplay feature that is really standing out to all of the other things?
Yeah, we learned a lot from Blind Forest and changed some things with Definitive Edition. But I think the biggest thing, is that we really want to make a big impact here. We didn't really want to go at Will of the Wisps and releasing like a 1.5 version of Ori. We really wanted a proper sequel. And so there are many things that are different, but I think the one thing that people will notice right away is how drastically the combat and the moment-to-moment engagement with enemies has really dramatically changed. Mm-hmm. And you'll probably notice now, instead of more or less kind of automated attacks from Spirit-like Companion Sign in Blind Forest, Ori is now quite capable of wielding melee weapons and using new abilities that require some precision and aiming, and mm-hmm. And then even more specifically, the shard system. So we've sort of flattened the skill tree out into these shards that are collectible throughout the world, and players can go in and actually respec themselves whenever they like. And some of the shards are really quite exciting. They add a whole new level of depth into combat and engagement with the game. And the shard system actually plays an even bigger role in terms of players of all varying different difficulty and experience levels. Mm-hmm. We feel like people who are quite gifted with platformers or who liked the challenge of Blind Forest, they'll be able to give themselves shards that really promote more offensive capabilities, maybe at the expense of taking some additional damage. Whereas people who may find themselves struggling in particular sections, they can go in and respec themselves with more defensive-based shards, mm-hmm. or shards that basically assist in navigation or platforming itself. And so, again, I think there's many layers of things that have really changed, but combat is the one big thing that's really gonna stand out right away. So,
did you have any worries at the beginning, giving Ori a weapon arsenal, or?
It's a great question. Ultimately, when we started coming up with concepts, and Moon was thinking how we could have more melee weapons. I think one of the primary concerns was that, in Blind Forest, Ori was very agile, very fast, very smooth, and we have a fantastic speedrunning community. So I think a lot of people loved how fluid the gameplay felt and how fast it was. So I think one of the challenges was really trying to think of ways that we could have combat be much more strategic, much more thoughtful in these engagements, but still have the moment-to-moment gameplay feel as fluid and kind of fast-paced as the original Ori. And it just took time. It just took a lot of let's try this, let's try that. This didn't work well. Oh, I like that. Just took time for the soup to simmer and get it to where, although there's this whole new level of engagement, it feels, like you're still a ninja, basically.
Mm-hmm. In terms of side quests, how much content can players expect? Like amount of hours or something like that?
Yeah. It's a challenge to pin how many hours the new experience is. simply because it's open world. So some players who rush very quickly, it's going to take them less time than people who want to really stop and really properly experience everything. I will say that Blind Forest, we really just it was open world, but we really kind of had a golden path. There was always one thing after another in front of you. And we've changed all that with Will of the Wisps. There is a new quest tracking system. There are golden path quests, and even those you have the freedom to say, I'm going to do this one first as opposed to that one. But yeah, as you call out, now there's optional side quests, and there's even entire whole new areas that are completely optional. So I guess instead of really saying Blind Forest generally took this amount of hours, Will of the Wisp will take that amount of hours, I'll say the game we're estimating is about 3 times the size in scope and scale. And in fact, we've had a lot of fun, taking the old Blind Forest map in the Unity editor and just fitting it into just a portion of the size of the world of Will of the Wisps. And ultimately, Metroidvania games, they're tricky. They're tough to develop because everything is so interconnected. And it's inevitable if you adjust one thing in the game, it's going to have a knock-on effect and really influence the rest of the world. So just took time to really get it right. And it's a much larger world, and it's very dynamic, and we're just excited with how it's shaped up. So.
Did you use the engine of the graphics engine of the previous title, or and improved on that, or did you build something from ground?
Yeah, so we're using Unity once again. Blind Forest, we really used a very traditional 2D system. We had 3D models, but we'd animate them and render 2D sprites and then import 2D sprites into the game. This time around, we feel like we're really raising the visual bar quite a bit by adopting a full 3D engine. And as a result, Blind Forest was a 60 frame per second game, but the actual character animations were 30. And so with the 3D pipeline now, actually even the character animations in the game are 60. So it just has much more of a fluid feel. And originally, when we were testing transitioning the game over to full 3D, we actually didn't tell many people. We wanted people to just play. And the ultimate experience we wanted to get from people is wow, I'm not sure what it is. It just looks more beautiful. It feels more fluid, And what we didn't want is it looks more beautiful, feels fluid. I can tell it's 3D, And I think we were successful in achieving that. And the other thing is from adopting a 3D pipeline, we're able to do things we weren't able to do before. Now we can have these huge, larger-than-life bosses and or piece of environmental sets, and so we're really trying to go above and beyond and really have some very jaw-dropping moments with some of these large boss fights.
With expanding on the world and the characters, is there a possibility in the game to get into the lore or read about the new characters you added, or?
So I will say there's a collector's edition coming that has a mini art book by Future Press. That has tons of background and lore in it, but the game's loaded with lots of lore itself. I'm really proud of the fact that with Blind Forest we were able to achieve such powerful emotional storytelling that really resonated with people. And we were able to do that with only 4 characters, which is really quite remarkable. And that's one of the many elements where, with the sequel, we've just figured if we're going to go big, let's go all in. And so, from your gameplay experience today, you can probably already see there's already many more characters than 4, and we've really tried our best to make all of the new characters, thoughtful. We want all of these characters to really have something where real people can identify with these characters. So yeah.
Do you got any plans on different endings for the game, or is it straightforward, just one ending?
That's a really difficult question to answer. because I don't want to ruin anything. But I will say that we're very much aware of what the original story of Blind Forest meant to some people. We have a fantastic community, and we had people identify with the characters of the game enough where they were sharing a lot of their own very personal stories, which was just fantastic. That's like the most powerful fuel for game developers, is really to just like, after how hard it is to ship a game, that just fuels us back up, I think. And so a lot of time and attention has been spent to make sure that the story treatment of the sequel is really just as powerful as Blind Forest, if not more so, and I think you'll have to like get your tissues back out. It's a joyful and emotional and sad story, and we just hope people love it. So,
could you give us a small glimpse on some challenges you faced in the development? Because there was like a small gap between showing new content of the game, and you mentioned that it was like 4 years development.
Yep. I think one of the bigger challenges is that there's many aspects about the moment-to-moment gameplay in Blind Forest that people loved. We didn't want to sacrifice any of that. We wanted to bring all of those elements into the new game. But we also wanted to make things a bit more grand. And so there's a lot of new systems in Will of the Wisps. And I think one of the biggest challenges was having those new systems to a polished level where they felt cohesive with some of the old things that we have. And, I think originally some of the new features felt compartmentalized, really separated, and just a lot of time and effort and polish have gone into making the new features feel feel very fluid with some of the older things we brought forward. Another thing, just to be more specific, I know the original save system, a lot of people loved it. We also had some player frustration around that with what was called Soul Link. And so you had to manually checkpoint yourself in Blind Forest. In exchange for energy, you'd lay down this little blue bonfire, right? Yeah. And if you died, that's where you would respawn. The problem, both experienced players and people who aren't as experienced, sometimes you just forget, and you'd play for 20 minutes, maybe an hour, and you'd die and go way back to where you originally soul linked. So you can probably see now, like, we're just auto checkpointing everywhere, right? And so if you die, you're brought back just moments before where you faced challenge. And doing this has actually just really like completely eliminated any player frustration in those scenarios. The other thing is that it's bought us back a face button, because you used to have a dedicated button for soul linking. And then so I'm sure you've messed around with like using the left trigger to, you have this very slick ability wheel where you're able to, on the fly, even in mid-combo, give yourself new weapons and abilities. And so not only, I think, did we sort of flatten player frustration around the save system, we've also given players like, an extended amount of player choice and being able to assign new attacks and abilities and things.
So as final question, what would you say is your personal thing that you really want players to explore, to see, to experience?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. There are many things. So I'll say two things, okay? I know you asked for one. I think a lot of players really loved the escape sequences in the first game, like the Jinzo Tree or Forlorn Ruins. They really liked the exciting and exhilarating gameplay of getting through these moments. And we're bringing more of that in Will of the Wisps. Not only that, there's large boss fights that actually incorporate escape sequences in the middle of these fights. So, your second phase of a boss fight may be escaping into another chamber while they're chasing you, and I think it's going to be fun to watch people play those moments and share their replays. But my second thing, just to return back to what I said before, like, really what we're trying to do with Will of the Wisps is what we tried to do in Blind Forest. We're trying to pay tribute to the games that you and I grew up playing and really loved, right? Not only that, we're trying to stitch in storyline and moment to moment that really resonate emotionally, and I'm really proud of the storyline of Will of the Wisps, and I hope that people really enjoy playing it as much as we've enjoyed crafting the experience. So,
Thanks for taking the time. It was great.
yeah, thank you so much. All right.